Hello, everybody. My name's Milan Starcic. Welcome to Freedom Rising, a podcast dedicated to empowering individuals on the journey to personal growth, lasting serenity, and freedom from addiction. Tune in and join the movement. Your journey to freedom starts here. We neither represent, promote, or demote any 12-step program or organization. We are merely souls on the path of recovery with the desire to expand our lives and experiences and share them with you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 209th Recovery Freedom Rising podcast. I'm Milan Starcic with co-host Darrin C. And today's topic is rigorous honesty. Can you share what this means to you, Darrin, and why you're happy to discuss this here today?
Yeah, it's good to see you, Milan. It's good to be back on the show. Yeah, when you told me rigorous honesty, at first I was like, oh no, what are we going to be able to talk about? But then I started thinking about it, and it's literally what this whole program is based on. And so I'm really excited to sort of dig deeper into this topic and get into it. So I won't go too much into detail now to save most of the good stuff for the show, but I'm excited to talk about it. I think it's something we don't talk about enough, so I appreciate the topic.
You know, one of the things I find very interesting that happens at meetings is, when it starts reading the how it works, how it talks about, there's those unfortunates who don't have the capacity to be honest. And like it literally says, without that capacity for honesty, there's very little chance of you sustaining sobriety. And that to me says that it's one of the cornerstones that you build your recovery on, and it being that unwavering commitment to truthfulness with ourselves, with others, with our higher power, that, it demands us to have an unflinching examination of ourselves. And for the first time, use the tools of this program to break down our feelings, our resentments into understanding, what our part is. Like nobody thinks they're the villain, right? But after doing your first step 4, didn't you certainly play a part in all your troubles? And quite frankly, without honesty, I would still be playing the blame game, saying that the whole world was the cause of all my troubles, not my perception. And that would leave me trapped, like the only reason I have a vehicle for change is because it's me I'm working on. Like I can't make Darrin see a different guy, but I can see Darrin see differently if I can change my perception. And so I think, there's a lot to be said on this topic, and I'm happy to leave it for the questions too. But, I think that next to love, I would say that honesty might be the most important thing inside this program, because you can be honest and not loving and get nowhere too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you want to start asking the questions, or do you want me?
Your call.
You start this time.
Okay. All right. So what is rigorous honesty as it pertains to the big book and to recovery?
Well, I think for me, it's there is no kind of honest. Like there was a lady who was a speaker at this roundup I went to this spring, and it was really awesome because she was talking about, she was sharing her story and her hope and experience, but for her, it was finally coming to the realization that there is no little lies, any lie is a lie, and they're all the same size, some might hurt others more than others, but they're still, if you look at it, they're all still lies. And really starting to look at that, because we also have lies by omission. And part of that is if we start filtering the world based on what we think others should or can handle, right? We never give them the chance to be themselves. And so then we're being fake. We're surrounded by fake, you know? And you can speak a truth, but not be being honest. You know, you can say something, but you know that selective omission can leave you being dishonest. And so I think for the very first time, you know, right at the start, you know, step one, we admitted we were powerless. Right? There's no kind of powerless. Right? Like there, and this is where we could almost do a whole podcast on reservations together, because I do believe that all those little reservations that people are hiding in them, they're just relapses waiting to happen, but they're also dishonesties, you know? Like for me, I know my reservation when I came into the treatment was probably, like, my mom has lung cancer, was probably when my mom dies. And fortunately for me, that very first week, I went to a meeting and there was a guy who came in. His mom had just died of cancer. He was talking about her pride at him being clean when she died, how, you know, he was committed to staying clean in her honor, how the program kind of helped him, you know, pack up her stuff and get through this. And, and so that dispelled the lie I was telling myself that I would need to get fucked up to cope with that, you know? Yeah. So I think I'll
It's
leave that
great.
one there. I'm not
No,
really
that's
sure if I
great.
answered the question, but I
No,
feel
that
like
was really great.
I love you, Darren. Glad to see you again,
Yeah,
man.
it's good to see you, brother. Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Um, the omission, we don't talk about, I don't ever hardly hear that in the rooms, but Bill talks about the sins of omission and commission, right? And I think sometimes we read that, we maybe don't necessarily know what omission and commission are, so we just continue on. But it's exactly what you said. Commission is the things that I commit, right? When I just that flat out
Yeah.
lie to you and you know, tell you a lie. But we don't talk about the omission, and that's when I don't tell you something that I should. Maybe I'm holding something back from my sponsor. And it permeates not only just recovery, but like even like in my marriage, if I like don't tell my wife the way I'm really feeling about something in our marriage, that's omission, and it's going to end up hurting my marriage. So the omission is just as important as the commission. I need to make sure I'm not outright lying, but I also need to make sure I'm not holding something back that I need to talk about. So I'm really glad that you talked about that omission. Back to the question, what is rigorous honesty as it pertains to recovery in the big book? So you know me, Milan, we've been around for a little while now. I'm a big book thumper,
Yep.
right? But because that's where I got sober, and that's the only thing I know about recovery, right? So everything that I go is I go in the big book. And if you ever get one of the manuscripts from the original big book, they argued over every single word, right? I mean, they the first 100 wanted to get every word right. So the words matter, right? It's very important. We don't just skim over when we're reading the book, and the words matter. And so this is what he says, right? I want to make sure we catch the context, because you already sort of briefly mentioned it. Those who do not recover, he doesn't say people that don't go to meetings or people that don't do this or that. He says the people that don't recover are the people that are not able to be honest with themselves, right? Now, obviously, like you talked about, the initial honesty is, hey, I got a alcohol problem or I got a drug problem. I'm a drug addict or an alcoholic, right? That's the initial problem. I got to get honest with myself. And until I can do that, if I can't get honest with myself that I have a problem, then why am I going to look for a solution in any area of my life, right? So that's the first step in any area, is identifying, hey, I got a problem here. I'm powerless. I can't do nothing about it. I need some help. And then I'll move on into getting help, whether that's recovery or just in basic life stuff, right? But I really want, especially for the newcomer, because there may be somebody around that's been around for a couple months and still lying all the time and thinking maybe this recovery thing doesn't work for me. And so I really want you to catch the verbiage that they use. First, he says they are naturally incapable of grasping. So what does that mean? So that means when I come here, I don't know nothing about honesty. I'm just a liar, bro. I lie all the time about everything. It's funny, when I got here at Milan, they told me, man, you need to get a new car and you need to get a new phone, because every time that I didn't show up somewhere because of my addiction, oh, my phone died. Oh, my car died. Oh, my phone died. Oh, my phone died. Right? And they're like, man, you need to get a new phone and a new car. They didn't know it was because I was caught up in addiction and had to have an excuse. But I just came in as a pathological liar about everything. So I don't even know anything about honesty. I have to start grasping it. I grasp it from guys like you that are here, that are talking about honesty and that are modeling honesty, right? And so I start to grasp this concept of honesty. Then he says, grasp and develop. So once I grasp it and see what it is and see, okay, hey, this is how honesty works, then I got to practice it. I got to work on it. It doesn't just come natural to me. So if you're out there and you're new and you're still struggling with this honesty thing, you're grasping and developing. It takes time. I've got to learn a new way of being, and that's being honest. And sometimes it takes a long time to grasp and develop that honesty. And then the last thing that he ends up with there, Milan, he says, grasping and developing a manner of living. So we don't ever want to forget, this is a way of life. It's a manner of living. It's not a checklist. I can't tell you how many people that I've talked to that have relapsed because they were checking the box. Call my sponsor, go to a meeting, just checking the box. And they didn't have, like what you talked about before, the love. They didn't have the honesty. It wasn't their everyday living, their manner of living. And that's what I have to do. I have to have a manner of living that demands the rigorous honesty, something that I live all the time, that I start to practice and develop in my daily life. So,
I love that. That was beautiful. I love you, Darren. Even in my fatigued pneumonia state, I was so grateful I was going to get to see you today, because it's just
likewise,
it's strange. I'm such a high energy guy. It's really strange to be like a normal person. like
right?
it's given me a lot of compassion for other people recently, you know. Um, but I was excited to come and talk about this here today, because I just I love your insight, and I love the time we share
Thank you.
together here.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Likewise.
Okay. Do you have do you want a question for me?
I think it's your question. I just
Yeah,
asked that
yeah,
one.
that's what I mean.
I started
Yeah,
off.
yeah.
Yeah.
We must be entirely honest with someone if we expect to live long or happily in this world. Reflecting on your sustained sobriety, how has being entirely honest with others contributed to your long-term happiness and well-being?
Thank you, Milan. That's a great question. So let me back up a little bit. So I just celebrated 16 years in October, but I
Boom.
sh- but I should have been coming up on 20. Boom, right?
Shoulda, woulda,
So
coulda.
yeah. But I want to talk about that real briefly because it pertains to your question. So we always tell people, we think that the magic sauce of recovery is in, doing the five things: going to meetings, calling my sponsor, doing. Now those five things are important, and a lot of other things, but the secret sauce is practicing these principles in all my affairs. And so I was
Mm.
coming up on 4 years sober, Milan, and I was going to meetings, I was sponsoring people. Yeah, I didn't have a sponsor anymore because I just lost track of my sponsor, but I was still checking boxes of recovery. But what I wasn't doing is I started getting back in some old shady behaviors. Not anything big and not anything grand, but just the little dishonesty. And because I didn't have a sponsor, I wasn't getting honest with about all these things. I was still going through the recovery process. I was still working with sponsees, going to meetings, doing all this stuff.
You lost your
But I wasn't.
accountability.
I lost my accountability and I lost the honesty. And
Hmm.
so these, because you hear them now, it's these cliches make you sick when you first get here, but the longer you stay here, you see how real they are. And one of them is you're only as sick as your secrets. And that's so true. And so
Yeah.
because of my secrets, I was I was not being honest, and I started to get sick again, and I relapsed. So it was a valuable lesson to me that even though going to meetings and calling my sponsor and all those things are super important, working with others, the most thing is I've got to tell somebody else all of everything, just like you just read in the question, right? And so this time around, The one thing that I do 100%, Milan, is I tell my sponsor everything, everything. There's nothing that man doesn't know about me. Now, I got to be careful. I don't tell everybody everything, right? Because it says I need to tell someone all, right? So it doesn't mean I go and tell the whole world everything that's going on, but I tell my sponsor everything. I tell them all my secrets, everything. And what that's done for me, it's given me this peace of mind. I don't have to live in the darkness of secrets. But I think even more importantly, Milan, it allows this guy to help me. Right? How if I can't tell you, hey Milan, I'm struggling with this. Hey, I need help with this. How are you ever going to know how to help me? If I tell you every time I see you, oh Milan, I'm fine, when everything is just burning to the ground, how are you ever going to be able to help me as a friend, as a support team recovery, as a sponsor, as anybody? So the honesty actually comes back to benefit me because now you know how to help me. Oh, okay, let me, and then so the more I'm honest with people, hey, I'm struggling here. Even like in my marriage, I tell my wife, hey, I'm not okay with this one area. We need to work on this one area. Then we work on that one area and the marriage gets better. I can't just like not tell people what's really going on, the truth, because it ends up hurting me. So I
Mhm.
hope that answered your question in some way.
It absolutely did, and I loved how for everybody out there, you also told how it derailed you, and how different and how much longer you've sustained sobriety by changing. Like that's really an important message for people out there. One of my great friends and sponsees recently had a relapse, and I'm I'm not mad that he relapsed. I'm happy that he's alive and come back. You know, and uh, and I think it's important for people to hear what they need to change, things to take a look at, because a relapse isn't the end of the road. It might just be the turning point that you need to grow in a direction that you had been fighting that change. So, yeah, we must be entirely honest with somebody if we expect to live long or happily in this world. Reflecting on my sustained sobriety, how has being entirely honest with others contributed to my long-term happiness and well-being? Well, first of all, I think that uh, it would be remiss to not mention the word integrity on this podcast. I believe that honesty and integrity, like if you are being honest, there's not the Milan I'm showing you and the Milan I'm really being. And I think that one of the most important things in this program is us having that honesty to act with integrity so that we are what we are being is who we're really being. It's having that other hamster wheel of web of deceit that we have to sustain that almost completely robs us from the present moment at all times. So for me, it was keeping me sick, really, not having honesty. And the further I got in my addiction, the less I really trusted others that I could share how I was, because I was afraid they were going to ask me to stop. Right? Like I'm not kidding. Like I remember the first intervention my family had with me, and I was like, "Fuck, man, when's this gonna end so I can go do a rip?" Like I wasn't. I'm not kidding. Like that's how sick I got, and so that lack of honesty and integrity, it was it. I had no well being. But now, when I'm acting honestly, I'm free. Like, take me or leave me, love me or don't. I'm gonna love you, but it makes for a peaceful me. I don't have this other thing. I'm trying to. What did I say to Darrin last week? Yeah, man, I know I was bullshitting Darrin, but like I don't have to sustain a fake Milan sitting here with you. I just have to speak from my heart, and I could say something wrong. And guess what? If you constructively criticize me and correct me, I'm happy to frickin' learn these days, you know? Um, and so how has that contributed to my long-term happiness? it might be one of the greatest sources of my long-term happiness. You know, like I have a level of serenity, contentment, and joy in my life right now that I've never experienced. The last 5 months, even with pneumonia right now, I'm having a pretty fucking joyous life. You know, like, and why? Because I'm not looking over my shoulder. Because it's just like things are simple. You know, like life right now boils down to two things for me. How can I deepen my surrender and how can I love more completely? And if I just look at those two, guess what? I'm being honest. If I'm really acting lovingly, love only knows truth. You know, I'm gonna leave
That's
that one
great.
there.
That's great, Milan. Hey, and I appreciate that you mentioned integrity because, they always say, integrity is doing the right thing or the things that I do when nobody's watching. And if so, I guess if that's true, which I believe it is,
Yeah.
then honesty at its core is the biggest level of integrity because nobody ever knows if I'm being honest or not, right? So,
Honesty
the
creates integrity.
yeah,
Honesty by
absolutely.
default creates
Yeah.
integrity.
Yeah, because nobody else knows the truth except me. And so if I'm telling the truth, then you're right. It creates the integrity and all that. And I really wanted to I wanted to stop for 1 second and talk about something because it's been on my heart. I did a meeting Friday night. So I went on a cruise
Yep.
3 weeks ago and I got real sick, man. I had this bout. I'm not going to go the long version, but I ended up having to go into the ship hospital for the whole day. It was a really bad deal. And because I got some medical issues I'm dealing with. And then when I got back, or the couple of days before I got back, I caught this massive virus, sort of like what you're going through. And I got in this sort of dark place for a week because I hadn't gone to meetings in 2 or 3 weeks. I hadn't called my sponsor, and now I'm sick and I don't feel good. Start getting in the poor me's. Why am I going through this and all of that? And so I came back Friday and they asked me to lead the meeting up at the treatment center where I go to every Friday night, and I led it on, you know, fighting adversity and still having this peace and contentment in adversity. And it just reminded me of that when you said that even through the pneumonia, I'm happy and peaceful. And so for the new guy out there, things are not just always great for guys like us that have been around. And
Mm.
we go through trials, we go through adversities, we get sick, we have problems. We just have spiritual principles that helps us deal with those things and keep some joy and peace and serenity in the midst of the things that we're going through. And so I thought it was real sort of strange that you're going through this pneumonia thing and I just
Mm.
came off of this big sickness. But in all of that, we still, because of recovery and these principles and this program, we still have some peace and joy and in the midst of all these problems. And I think that's the greatest thing, the greatest takeaway for the newcomer. Number one, you're going to have problems, right? Because everybody has problems. It's life. But that this program can help you have joy and peace and happiness, even when you're going through things that suck, right? And so I just want to throw that out there
Mm.
because you've been going
Yeah.
through it and I just got off of it.
Well, and I want to add one thing is that, you know, not for a moment in all that was drugs or alcohol a potential solution for me. Like, I think that's really important. My solution was doing some extra prayer, surrender, and really gratitudes. Like when I was getting really itchy bitchy and twitchy in bed, sick, it was like I started praying gratitudes. I put my hands up in supplication and was just like, now's the time where, like I've got a lot to be grateful for, even if I'm just lying here. My house is warm. I have food. I got a wife who's asking me what I want. You know what I mean? I got a dog snuggling beside me. Today I am free. But, we can't forget our program in those dark times because that is the sustenance to get us through.
Absolutely, Melanie. And it's sort of weird because it's sort of all the podcasts that we've done are the solution. The gratitude was the first one. You
Yeah.
went through the gratitude when you were doing that. I avoid the deliberate manufacture of chaos. I don't make this bad situation worse by going
Yeah.
drinking and drugging or doing something stupid or yelling at my wife or whatever. And so all of these these things that we've been doing are part of the solution. And that's sort of why I brought it up, because my solution to all of this dark place that I got into of why is this happening to me and why am I going through this? The solution to that was I started getting honest. I got honest, number one, with my wife. Hey, I don't feel good. I'm going through this. I got honest with my sponsor. Hey, I've been in a dark place. I'm starting to get into self-pity. And then I got honest with the people in my recovery unit at this meeting, because I don't want people to put me on a pedestal and think oh, look at here's this guy, he's super
Mm.
recovery. No, I'm human just like you. I go through
Yeah.
things, I get in bad places. And so when I got honest to my wife, to my sponsor, and to the recovery group about how I was really feeling, guess what? The feeling went away and I got back into joy and peace and happiness. And so it's just like you said, these tools that we've learned, the gratitude, the honesty, the
Mm.
not making things worse, all the things that we've learned are what keeps me, because I'm the same way. I never thought of drinking and drugging, never came to my mind.
That's
Now I
right.
thought of what poor me and pity, self-pity, and the pity pot
Yep.
that you talk about, but I never thought about drinking and drugging. This what a blessing. And I was able to get honest and get out of it. So I just sort of wanted to throw that in there because I thought it had something to do with the honesty that we were talking about.
I'm really glad you took it there, because it inspired me to add on to that. I really think we inspire each other intellectually when we talk, and I love that. That's one of my favorite things, is we're not afraid to think, you know,
Right.
and mediocre is not our state of being.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you said it in one of our earlier podcasts. We're seekers. We're seekers of
Yeah.
truth instead of seeking an easier, softer way to escape our feelings like we did before we
Mm,
got here. We're always going to be seekers.
mm,
I'm either seeking to numb the pain, or
mm.
I'm seeking to grow spiritually and that way. So yeah, I
I've
like
got a
the seeker.
recommendation for you if you've never read it or listened to it. In the Realm of the Hungry Ghosts by Gabor Mate.
Okay.
The downtown east side of Vancouver, where the conference was near, it's like the worst drug place in all of Canada. And this guy is a doctor from there, and he really relates early childhood trauma to addiction. This book is revolutionary. Like, I'm telling you, like, just something for you and your sponsees to read, to really understand what made us go the route we went. You
Right.
know,
Right.
yeah, in the realm of the hungry ghosts. It's
Yeah,
phew,
I'll have to check that out. Because Bill talks
yeah,
about that causes and conditions.
yeah.
What are the things that caused me and the conditions that drove me here?
But he points out things like there's trauma that's caused, like when you're a baby, by how frequently your mother looks at you with love and her pupils are a certain size. You can't step five that or step four that. You
Right.
don't even remember that. But it's things that set you up to be an addict. And
Right.
it's really amazing for filling in the holes that you might do a ton of rounds of steps and wonder what's missing here, you know.
Right.
And this is like, and the beauty of it is, though, is that it's not all doom and gloom. With neuroplasticity we can still change ourselves and grow, and it's an
Right.
amazing thing. Anyway, you
Yeah, I'll
got
have to
another
check
question
that
for
out.
me?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And so, what does rigorous honesty mean to you? What is the definition to you? What does it look like to you?
Well, it doesn't mean kind of being truthful, you know, like, geez, where is it? Oh, my book's over there. I was going to say I got my little big book but let's just quickly define the word rigorous here, right? Extremely thorough, exhaustive, or accurate. Now, this is where I feel like, okay, looking at it in the sense of step one, right? I fought for 17 and a half years. Like, I was 37 and a half years actively drinking and drugging. But the last 17 and a half, I knew there was a problem. but I couldn't admit powerlessness. You know what I mean? I tried all the stuff they say, like, with drinking like a gentleman, only on the weekend, switching to this, blah, 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 only going to do this, only on then, and only on birthdays, only for celebrations, weddings, like only when I'm sad, only when I'm happy, all that. And I never was practicing rigorous honesty at that point of saying I was out of control. And it took me dying for that to happen. Like I see that turning point as one of the greatest gifts. They call it a gift of desperation for a reason. And it certainly was for me, because otherwise I would either be dead or just unbelievably like at a further state of psychosis and lack of health right now. Um, and then, the rigorous honesty for step two, like came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. I had to admit that that wasn't me, like, and that, it wasn't going to be for my wife, wasn't going to be for my daughter. It was like, like I needed help. And then, you know, step three, the rigorous honesty that I'm not running this fucking universe. And I certainly thought I was a good universe. I thought I was HR for the whole universe. I was ready to give you a job, my wife a job, my daughter a job, my mom a job. Everybody around me was like, "Hey, guess what? I can imagine you're just looking for something to do that I want you to." Like and but then, then came step four, where it was like I was like, okay, I'm doing my defects list. I was going to have people lined up to the left, all ready to apologize to me the day that I was leaving the treatment center. I was like, man, they're going to, like, I'm going to have this so wrapped in a little bow. They're going to be like, no way out of my resentments. And it was all me. That rigorous honesty meant really admitting, like taking honesty and humility and creating and seeing the truth for the first time. It was the first thing that let me dispel the delusions, right? And then, I think since we've gotten together, I had a real epiphany about self-forgiveness. And and step six, we're entirely ready. And with that we're entirely ready, the only way I'm going to be entirely ready is if I'm honest enough to see every facet of what it is I want to give away. Like if I don't even know how I'm lying to you, my ability to turn that over to my higher power to change is stifled. It's never going to go free if I don't know what I'm turning over. So I've got to be honest about how I have to change inside that. The fires that you got to walk through to develop new habits, to be a new person, and to see it entirely clearly. And so the rigorous honesty just rolls through everything, where it's like, I don't think you're going to practice any step completely. Like even for example, like jump into step 12. If all my service is so that I get an attaboy, that's not service. If I'm only doing the service that feels good to me and not doing things that people really need help with, that's not service. Like there's so much to the honesty that that I think is just, it's gotta be rigorous. Like it just can't be slight. Okay, and so now do you want to answer your own question there, Darrin?
Yeah, what does rigorous honesty mean to me? And so I think the most important thing that I learned early on is there's two levels to this rigorous honesty, right? The first one is me. Long before I can be honest to you, I've got to learn to be honest with me. Because I mean, think about that on a logical level. If I can't tell myself, "Hey, this is a problem," then I'm not ever going to call my sponsor and say, "Hey, this is a problem," right? So I have to learn to be honest with myself. And that's what step one says. It says they're incapable of being honest with themselves. It didn't say they're incapable of being honest with others, because I hadn't got there yet. I need to learn to be honest with myself about everything that's going on with me, right? Because I live in a disease that's full of illusion and delusion. That's the two words that they use. In other words, this is what I heard early on, Milan. I got one side of my brain that's constantly trying to manufacture BS, and its only job is to sell it to the other side of my brain, right?
Yeah.
To get me to live in that delusion, that illusion, that denial, that all that stuff. And recovery is about bringing me back into reality, bringing me back into honesty of what's really going on with me. So I had to learn to be honest with myself. What's really going on? Why do you really feel this way? Right? No, you're not. You're not mad at Milan because you're. What's really? Why is this making you upset? The spiritual axiom: when I'm disturbed, there's something wrong with me. Okay, what's wrong with me? Why is this bothering me? Usually that wouldn't bother me, but it's bothering me now. So I had to learn this internal honesty. It's the secret to this whole program. The people that cannot have this internal honesty do not recover, Bill says. So the very first thing, and obviously step one, and the most important is, hey, I've got this drug and alcohol problem or whatever, right? The internal honesty about my problem with the addiction or with the alcohol or whatever, right? But then as I go on, I've got just got to continue grasping and developing that honesty within myself of, hey, this is a problem. Hey, I need to work on this. Hey, this is not what my higher power wants me to do. Hey, that wasn't the right thing. I probably need to go make amends for that. Developing that, right? And then the second thing, uh, start to be be honest with others, right? Once I learn this internal honesty, then I need to come start being honest with you and being honest with my sponsor and my wife and people around me, right? And so, and I totally agree with you, Milan, that it is the base core of recovery. I would even go further to say it's the base core of just happiness in life of even people that are not in recovery, right? Because if I can't get honest with my situation and the people around me, whether I'm in recovery or not, my life is going to suffer. So I think honesty, just at the base core, is one of the highest human needs, just in period. And so, what I want to throw out, because you made me think about this when you were talking. So, I have a sponsee of mine, Eric C. from he lives here in Houston, and he's actually got like twice as much time with me, almost. He's got, I think he just celebrated 29 years, but his sponsor died, and he asked me to sponsor him, take him back through the book. And so I've been sponsoring for a couple of years. It's been a great relationship. I've learned from him. He's learned from me. But he said something to me one time when we were going through the literature that's just sort of always stuck with me and sort of rocked my recovery. And so the part of the book where it says self-searching, leveling of our pride, and confession of shortcomings are required for the successful consummation of this program. And he said to me, if you think about it, everything that we do, every principle, every step comes down to that self-searching, leveling of pride, and confession of shortcomings. And it sort of shocked me. And I'm like, wow, it really does everything that we do comes down to that. And you sort of touched on it. Step one, honest with myself, right? Step two, honest that there's a power and that I need to help. Step three, I mean, every through the 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, I've got this defect. Let me talk to my sponsor. Let me ask God to help me with it. Everything comes down to self-searching, leveling of pride, confession to shortcomings. Step 8 and 9. Okay, I wronged them. That's being honest with myself, leveling my pride, and then going and saying, hey, I wronged you. Right. So the whole program, all the steps, all the principles come down to honest with myself. And then once I'm honest with myself, lowering that pride that tells me I don't have to tell anybody, even though I've been honest with myself. And then confession of my shortcomings, going and talking to somebody else about it. It literally, if I'm living in self-searching, confession of self-searching, leveling my pride, and confession of shortcomings, then I'm probably doing a really good job in this program.
I love that. That was beautiful. Are you ready for another question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. How has prioritizing thoroughness and honesty in your self-examination allowed you to rebuild your life over the years?
That's a good question. So Thoroughness, right? Thoroughness. That's a word we don't talk about enough. Thoroughness. And I think the one thing, and it was early on, Milan, it was early on when I got here. One of my mentors in the program, I had something going on, and he wasn't my sponsor, but we have a sponsor, and then we have a couple of mentors that we talk to as well. He was one of my mentors, and I called him one day, and I made a comment. There was something going on in my life, but it wasn't a big giant deal. Just some little thing that was sort of bothering me a little bit, but it wasn't a big deal or not. And I almost didn't even tell him about it. I'm like, well, this doesn't even really matter. It's just a little thing. And then I'm like, no, let me tell him about it. And so I told him about it, and he said something to me that forever shaped my recovery. This is probably 18 years ago, Milan. He said, if it's on your mind and if it's on your heart, it's a big thing.
Hmm.
Whether it seems small and so I love that always brought me into this thoroughness. So if something comes up, so hold on, let me back up. Think about this. Bill says this in the fourth step
Yeah.
about taking the inventory. He said we have to be honest about the stock and trade. And what I tell my sponsees is what that looks like is, so I'm running the store and I pick up this can of green beans and it expired yesterday. Right? I can't say, well, it's probably good for another week or two. Let me put it back
Mm,
on the shelf. No, it's expired.
mm,
I got to be honest about the stock and trade. This is no good anymore. I have to get rid of this. And the reason Bill writes it that way is because as alcoholics and addicts, we have this innate ability to minimize things, right? That minimalization. It's not that big a deal. Yeah, it bothers me a little bit, but it's. And so I remember somebody saying this in a meeting one time. Not the big things that take me out. I know somebody dies in my family or something. I need to go talk to somebody. I need to process that. But it's those little things. It's not that big a deal. It's not that big a deal. And then those little things pile up on me. And before long, I don't know why I'm off the rails. And so I'm glad that I learned this thoroughness of telling everything, even if I think it's stupid, even if I think that it's not that big a deal, I'm just wasting his time by telling him this. He's got better things to do than talk about this stupid thing. No, if it's on my heart and it's bothering me, even in the slightest, I need to talk that out. That's thoroughness. I got to be thorough. I got to look at my whole inventory and be honest about the stock and trade and not minimize things and say, oh, that's not that big a deal. Oh, that's okay. You know, it's sort of like my story that I talked about before, Milan. So when I say I was getting into some old behaviors, right? All it was is I found some fake weed online that you could buy that was legal. I never bought any. I didn't never get it, but I was thinking about it. It was just a little thing, just thinking
mm,
about it, looking at it on the line, and I never got honest about that. And all those little
mm.
things that don't seem like a big deal because my mind tells me, well, you didn't buy any, you didn't relapse, you didn't use it. No, but I'm looking at it and I'm thinking about it. I need to talk to somebody about that, but I didn't. Right. And so I'm real clear today, even little things, even things that I'm like, my mind's trying to tell me it's not that big a deal. I need to be thorough and talk about all the things that are going on with me.
Man, I really love a bunch of what you said there. And one of my favorite things I heard somebody say at the conference, and he said, "Am I treating my serenity like it's priceless, or am I passing it like the salt at a table?" And and that stuck with me because I thought to myself, how easily I'll give it away. I'll give it away to a guy breaking in front of me on the road. I'll give it away to somebody in line who's taken too long to count the pennies instead of just tapping their card. Like, but the thing about it is it's exactly what you were saying about the thoroughness. Like if I am not thorough, then I've given my serenity away to that item. you know, and it took me 16 months to really understand the serenity prayer. Like I thought, if I have acceptance, I will have serenity. But no, if I get myself to a state of serenity, I will then have acceptance. I will then have courage. I will then have wisdom. So it's about treating our serenity like it's priceless. And when you're being dishonest and not being thorough, like, okay, my office and my recording studio are here down in our garage. There's been a long time that I wanted to set up how I was doing the video, how I was doing the audio. And yesterday, I finally did it all. And I got to a point where I had done everything but the surface of my desk and the surface of this filing cabinet. And I was this close to not being thorough. I was like, maybe I'll just record a song. Maybe I'll get back to this tomorrow. I've got time before I record this podcast with Darrin tomorrow. And inside myself, I said, no, the job is not done here. And I will not have serenity from this until it's done. I would lie in bed. I swear if I didn't do that, finish off those two things, I would have lied in bed last night thinking, it's just not done. Whereas last night I lied in bed and thought, this is done right, you know? And I think that there's a bit of a metaphor there for being honest with myself about finishing things, being thorough, and really, truly, I feel that now, like this year, 2025, has been my year of no procrastination. And I'm not saying I haven't procrastinated at all. I'm being honest about that. But what I'm saying is that if I consciously catch myself procrastinating, I will not allow it to happen. I do not right now. And that's being honest with myself. Like kind of doing stuff creates this illusion that you're accomplishing things that you really aren't. You know, it's literally procrastination is dishonest about accomplishments, you know, and it's and it's also dishonest about when I'm getting back to it, if I'm honest. So for me, you know, the thoroughness and the honesty in my self-examination, you know, it's constant and it's constantly evolving, you know, like I am really, really, really trying to push right now on being willing to really forgive myself. You know, like if I'm honest, there's a lack of self-forgiveness that, you know, that I'm finally coming to a state of readiness at. Like I'm finally at step 6 with my self-forgiveness. And that lack of self-forgiveness was something like I felt like I was deserving some kind of impending punishment, you know, and I was not being honest with myself about it. You know, like I would say, oh yeah, I want to forgive myself, but was I really willing to start? And I wasn't, you know. So anyway, that's what I got on that one.
Thank you. That was great, Milan. And what you said may be the greatest thing that somebody hears in this whole 2-hour podcast today. It's not finished yet, right? I mean, they told me when I got here, we're great starters and poor finishers. And that's everything in my life, man. I'm gung ho. And then I get somewhere along the way and I'm like, it's good enough. No, it's
Yeah.
not. It's not good enough, Milan. It's not
Oh,
finished.
yeah.
Right? I can't say, that's what Bill talks about it. He says, we feel that the elimination of alcohol is but a beginning. I can't say, oh, it's enough. At least I'm sober. No, it's not
Mm,
enough. I'm not finished. Right? Well, at least I did that. No, I'm not finished. And
mm.
so that's why Bill talks about we get this thing a little twisted because in the beginning he says progress not perfection, and so we use this as an excuse our whole recovery to not get finished. Oh, it's progress not perfection. No, progress not perfection is not an excuse not to finish. Progress not perfection is for me to let myself off the hook when I stumble and fall so I can get back up again and get back on the path. But how many of us use the progress not perfection to be slackers, to be lazy, to not finish? Because Bill goes on to say, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say in the 12 by 12, in the step 6, he corrects himself and says it's actually progress towards perfection. Like we're not fish swimming in a lake. We're fish swimming upstream. You know, that's all I
Yeah.
want to say.
Yeah, no, and yeah, that's what I was going to go on to say, Milan. I don't know that he necessarily corrects himself, because what he said in the beginning is a true statement. It is progress, not perfection. Because I'm my worst critic, and so if I stumble, oh, I'm not. This thing's not working. I'm not going to make it, and so I can't get in this mindset of I got to be perfect every time, all the time, and I can't mess up, or I'm not going to make it. So it is that progress, not perfection, is to let me off the hook when I stumble and fall. And so check this out. So what he says there, and that's what I was gonna continue to point to. He says we need to strive towards perfection. So we don't. Why don't we talk about that in the recovery rooms? Because nobody wants to strive toward perfection. He says we need to strive toward perfection, no matter how haltingly we walk. So you know what? No matter how haltingly we walk, that's what he meant when he said progress, not perfection.
Mm,
And so I don't know, he might have corrected himself. Maybe he just added that in so he wouldn't use that as an excuse to be lazy. I don't know why they did it, but he tells you there at that end, okay, this thing is about trying to be perfect. Every day I'm trying to be perfect, but I'm human and I'm not going to be perfect, and I'm going to mess up and I'm going to fall. So no matter how haltingly I walk, I got to get up and get back on that path towards perfection. Right? I need to finish. It's not finished yet, Milan. I love that when you said that it's not finished yet, and so it keeps me from doing things halfway. Well, I did this, and like you were talking about the service work. Okay, well, I did a meeting this week. Yeah, but they need me to go do over here, and I'm using this one thing that I've already done as justification or excuse not to go finish. So
mm,
I need to, this thing is never finished. I'm never finished,
no.
right? That's why at 16 years sober, I still go to meetings. I still work with others. I still come on these shows like this with you. I still do something every day for my recovery because it's not finished.
Mm,
But my mind wants to tell me, oh, it's finished. So that's why Bill says we can't rest on our laurels. It's not
mm,
finished.
yeah.
And so I love that you said use that thing about your room to correlate to
Mm,
recovery,
mm,
that it's not finished, because that's a profound thought.
mm. And and I want to say one last thing, like about the progress. I feel really strongly about this, is that I can progress to my fucking death. And that's still progress. If I'm not aimed in the right direction, I can progress to nothingness. I can progress to neutrality and don't do anything. Like I really think when he reiterates that point in the 12 by 12, it's because I'm sure at that point he had seen 19 years of some people saying, easy does it, and hardly doing nothing. And we do not have the luxury. We don't have for me, as somebody who will die if I'm using, I do not have the luxury of taking my time, aimlessly treading water, getting nowhere. I'm either growing or dying. And that's the reality for me. So, like everybody's different, and if your disease wasn't going to kill you, man, I'm stoked for you. But mine is a life or death situation, you know?
No, and I 100% agree with you, Milan. And I think that's what separates us from the normal people. If they don't practice these principles, if they don't get honest, then maybe they lose their marriage, or maybe their marriage is just not happy, or maybe but me and you, we have death, jail, or institution waiting. I mean, there's
Yeah.
no middle of the road for us. I'm burning my life to the ground if I'm not doing this thing. So you're right. It's a different level from us. And, Bill talks about that in the beginning. He says, right, that this is it looks like it's a lot of levity, but faith has to work 24 hours a day in us, or we perish, we
Oh,
die. It's
yeah.
like you just said. I go back out and I'm not here anymore, and they'll be like, "You remember that guy that was on the podcast with Milan?
Yep.
He overdosed and died." Yeah,
Yep.
it's serious. It's exactly like you say. So I can't play around with this thing. I don't play around with this
Mm,
thing. Just like you, every day I'm trying to progress towards recovery
Mm,
so that I'm not progressing towards death, jail, or institution. So I'm really glad
yep.
that you threw that out there like that.
I feel that it's so important. And also, I truly think, there's a reason why they used to do the steps in such a short period of time is I think that that gift of desperation has about a 5 to 7 week window. Like you gotta get some recovery in you or you forget how bad that was, you know?
So think about this, Milan. If you're right, and I think you are,
Mm,
if you're right, then the more time you get, the more in danger you are because
yeah.
you've lost that. I don't have this desperation that I had
Yeah.
16 years ago when I walked in here after losing everything. So I have to do this on a daily basis, right? Because if I don't, if I sort
Mm,
of just rest on my laurels, take it easy, then because I've lost that desperation, because that window
mm.
is so short back then, I'm going to probably go back out. And so you're right. That window is short. So I have to every day maintain my spiritual connection
Yeah.
or, or I'm in trouble, right?
You know, for me, I was so lucky. I was awake right to the point of death, man. And so people who fall asleep and overdose in that, like I feel sorry for them because man, they do not have the terrifying, horrifying experience that I had being awake. Like I have not lost my gift of desperation. I can close my eyes and be right straight to epic black hell. Like, so for me, it's a perpetual motivator, at least thus
I
far.
got it.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
mhm.
All right, I got another question for
I'm
you.
ready. I'm ready.
It's a trick. It's a trick question. You ready?
Oh boy.
Should I be rigorously honest with all the people all the time?
Okay, so this is one that I consistently have conversations with people about. Okay. Um, First of all, I truly believe that lying by omission is still a lie. I truly believe this. And I also want to say 100%, I don't think everybody can handle all the truth all the time. Like I do think that rigorous honesty might be at the expense of some relationships. And that's okay. That's okay. Like there is people who will never want you to be completely honest. They will want you to be the cookie cutter response, blah, blah, blah. And that's fine. Like my circle is smaller and different inside recovery, you know? Um, but the one thing that I'm learning and and I'm still learning how to implement it, right? Is is to be gracefully honest, you know? Like criticism and constructive criticism are two different things, right? Like if there, it's like the difference between empathy and compassion. Empathy is understanding or feeling another person's feelings. Compassion is empathy combined with a desire to make it better for them. And so very much so that rigorous honesty, like if it's just coming out and you're not actually trying to not be mean with it, then it's not constructive, then it's not nice, then it's not loving, you know um and the problem is, this is the problem for me. And I haven't heard anybody say a solution that makes life easier with this is that if I filter what I say to you, because I'm trying to cushion the world for you, for in my perception to make the world kinder, to make the world nicer, I am never allowing you to really be you. And therefore, what I'm doing is I'm creating a fake me so you never know me. And then that in turn creates a fake you because you're reacting to a false world. Like you can't accurately reflect a world that isn't accurately shown to you. You know, like if I like, you know, when you were talking about your wife, about really letting her know how you were feeling when you were sick, and if you're just like, it's all fine, she's like, well, Darrin says he's all fine, but he's kind of acting negative about everything, and it's because you are shitting in your pants or something. You know, looking for a bathroom, not caring about what she's saying. But whatever it is that, you know, this is where I don't know the solution to this, but I do know one thing is that if I try to act lovingly, I'm in less situations that I have to lie by omission. And that's all. And um, I don't really know how else to handle the world at this point.
That's good stuff. I hope somewhere in my answer that I'll help clarify your question to a little degree,
Okay.
because this is something I've thought about for a while, and I've been here a long time, and I've talked to my sponsor about this a long time. So it's you sort of said it when you were talking. So I need to figure out how to be honest, when to be honest, what way. It's not just my sponsor tells me all the time. This thing is not cut and dry. It's not everything's not black and white. I like to see things in black and white, not always in black and white. So think about even when he's talking about the amends, he says good timing, tact, and common sense. Hold on. I thought I was just supposed to go make the amends. No, bro. If they just lost their mother yesterday, I probably don't need to go burden them with an amends right now. That's not good timing, right? I need tact, common sense, good sense of timing. So he tells me right there, I need to make sure that everything is going the way it's supposed to be going before I do something, right? And so they made it real simple. I always heard this when I got in. Does it need to be said? Does it need to be said now? And does it need to be said by me? Because sometimes I'll go be honest with this guy. It's none of my business. I'm not even involved in this, right? It's like I overheard him say, no, does it need to be said? Does it need to be said now? And does it need to be said by me, right? So I always have to look at this, what's going on with the honesty. And so I want to share this with you, Milan, and I hope that it'll help answer a little bit of your question. I don't know that there is a universal answer to all of it, but this has sort of helped me in my growth, right? So when I first started looking in this rigorous honesty, I was like, some questions about rigorous honesty, and I don't think that we're supposed to be rigorous honesty to all people all the time. And so I went to my sponsor because I don't have all the answers. I'm not right all the time. I don't know. I'm a learner. I'm a seeker like you. So I go to my sponsor and I'm like, hey, this is sort of the way I'm reading the book. What are your thoughts? And he said something to me, Milan, that forever changed my life. He said, you're absolutely right. I don't tell my wife she looks fat in that dress. That's not honesty. That's hurtful.
Yeah.
So think about that for a second, Milan. Except when to do so would injure them or others. So that tells you it's not rigorous honesty all the time to all people. Because if I'm going to hurt you by what I'm telling you, then I don't need to do it. It says except when to do so, it's going to injure you, right? And so I want you to stay with me on this train of thought because it's really important.
Mm-hmm.
He says, if we have an affair and our wife doesn't know, should we tell her? Now, if you're just living in this straight black and white rigorous honesty to all people all the time, your answer is automatically yes. But that's not what Bill says. He says not always.
Yep.
What? Hold on. Because if she doesn't know and I go tell her, it's going to destroy her, destroy our marriage. And he goes on to say this, Milan. I really want you and the audience to hear this because these are powerful words that have saturated my soul. I have no right to save myself at your expense.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he says, except when to do so to injure them or others. Now, with all that being said, going back to what we've already talked about, I do think I have to be rigorously honest all the time to someone. So I tell my sponsor, hey, I think that my wife is looking fat in this dress. Now, I don't think that my wife is beautiful, but I'm just saying whatever it is, right? if I think I'm going to hurt the other person,
Yeah.
I still need to talk about it. I still need to tell somebody. I need to be rigorously honest, but I go do that with my sponsor. I don't go tell my boss, "You're a jerk. I just wanted to be honest with you." That's it. I'm probably going to lose my job. So if you're new, that's not what rigorous honesty means. That's not what we're talking about. That's going to hurt you. It's going to hurt your family because now you don't have a job. No, I go tell my sponsor, "Hey, my boss is a jerk." So we can process that. I can get those feelings. So yes, I do need to be rigorously honest all the time with someone, but not all the time to all people. There's
Mhm.
sometimes when it's not common sense, it's not tact, it's going to be hurtful, right?
Mhm.
Now, here's the big biblical word that we don't ever use in the program, but it's called discernment. Discernment is me trying to figure out, is this going to hurt you, or if I'm just trying to, if I'm living in fear and just don't want to tell you. And so that's why I have a sponsor. We talk about all this stuff, and my sponsor's like, "No, that's probably going to be hurtful. Let's not do that." Or, "No, that's just your ego and pride. You need to go get honest with them," right? That's why I have a spiritual advisor, my sponsor, to help me discern, is this going to be hurtful, or is this just me not trying to tell the truth, right? And so everything's not always cut and dried. So I just really want to throw that out for the audience, because I remember early on, Milan, I remember early on, there was a guy that had like 10 years sober. He did our big book study, and he said, he was telling the story. He said this guy came in, he got sober, and he was like on step 2, and he was on fire for the world, and I'm going to be rigorously honest. And so he goes and tells his wife, "I've been cheating on you, but I'm rigorously honest today, and I'm in the program, and I'm good." And she left him and filed for divorce and took the kids away, and he was devastated. And the guy that was leading the big book study was like, "If you would have read step 9, you wouldn't have done that, because step 9 says, except when to do so is going to injure them or others." And so that's probably something this guy should have talked about with his sponsor. And even Bill talks about that. He says, remember the story in the book where he stole the money from his friend? You remember that story? He stole the
Mhm.
money from his friend, and then he lied and said the friend didn't give him the money and ruined his friend. And he had to go like make amends. And he went up in front of the whole town and made the amends. You remember that story?
Yeah.
Don't forget this little piece in the middle of that story. He says before he did that, he talked to his sponsor and his wife and people that were going to be affected, to make sure they see. I got to think about other people too, Milan, not just myself. I'm going to go do this and then it destroys everything around me. No, I talk to my sponsor, I talk to my wife, I make sure that it's not going to do more damage than it's going to do good, and then I proceed in with that. So I just sort of wanted to throw that out there, because I don't know that we talk about all that stuff
Mm.
enough in the program.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad that you had such an amazing, thorough answer for that. That was awesome, Darren. I love you. Um, is it my turn or your turn to
I
ask a
think it's you.
question?
Yeah, I think it's
Okay,
you.
okay. So, we have been experts at self-deception and rationalization. By writing our inventory, we can overcome these obstacles. Reflecting on your journey, how has an honest inventory writing overcome your past self-deception and supported lasting change in your life?
That's a great question. Thank you for that question, Milan. So, I want everybody out here to hear this, because I don't think that we talk about this. He says we put them on paper, right? Sometimes people want to know, "Oh, can I do an Excel spreadsheet?" No, you can't do an Excel spreadsheet. It needs to be written on paper, right? Well, why can't I just tell you about them? Because I really don't want somebody to find the paper. No, it says it has to be written on paper. And why is that so important? Because scientists have already proved that there's something, when I start writing something, there's some kind of connection with my brain that helps me to be honest with myself, because I'm actually writing it. So the first thing I need to do is write it, right? And so as I start putting all that stuff down and writing all that stuff, now, not in the first column, because I was just like you, Milan. I'm writing the first column so all these people can come apologize to me for all the things that they did for me, right?
I was so
So,
convinced.
yeah, writing the first column didn't necessarily help me any much. But when I got to that fourth column and I started physically putting ink to paper of, "Oh, look at what I did. Oh, this was my part. Oh, wow. I caused. Oh, wow." And so that's the answer to your question. It was in that beginning, the first four step I ever did, and I've done three or four of them since, but that first one of writing that down and looking at the thing I never wanted to look at of what part I played in that, where was I wrong? It literally melted. I can't be dishonest with myself anymore because I'm writing it. It's me writing the truth about me. Oh, I did this. You know, and if I don't do that, Milan, then I end up. Remember the first example in the big book about the four step, Mr. Brown told
Yeah.
my wife of my affair, And so I always ask my sponsee, what was Mr. Brown's part in that? He had an affair. But the problem is, I never get to that because I'm just sitting here blaming Mr. Brown for telling my wife. If he wouldn't have told my wife, everything would have been great. No, if I wouldn't have been cheating on my wife, everything would have been great. But I can't see that. And so when I
Mhm.
first start writing that stuff about myself, that forces me to be honest with myself. Now, because I learned that discipline early on and I've done a bunch of written four steps, now it's sort of just a natural thing to me, right? It says the book talks about it's a working part of our mind. So now when these things come up, I don't necessarily have to physically write them. I just can automatically see my part. Oh, you know what? I shouldn't have said that. That's why me and my wife are fighting is because I made that comment or had big ego or I didn't feel good. And I can immediately see my part. It's molded this self-searching, right? But with that being said, and I'll finish with this, there's still times, even after 16 years, where I get in a little rut and I'll have to physically go sit down with my right. There's been a couple things my sponsor was like, okay, write a four step. And I have to go back and physically write the four step, find my part, and then go sit down with him and process it. And so I think, to answer your question, that's what that was for me.
I love that. Okay, we've been experts at self deception and rationalization. By writing our inventory, we can overcome these obstacles. Reflecting on my journey, how has honest inventory writing overcome my past self deception and supported lasting change? You know, I feel kind of stupid, but the reality was until I was 52 and came in this program, I did not have the tools to see past my self-deception. Like I literally like, half of my brain was selling bullshit. Well, the other half was like so eager to buy it. It was so eager to buy it. It was like, front me some more, like, and, and I'm telling you that, man, I believed it. I did not see my part in all my relationships that I was unhappy with, on all my resentments. And, so, the honest inventory writing, like my first step four was 120 pages, man. I went to fucking town. Like I was as thorough as I could be about everything. Some people might call that crazy, but for me, it was like I had a lot of shit to get out. Like I wasn't a 23-year-old. Like I've had some young sponsees. Man, they're 25. They had a tenth of the resentments that I had because I had like perpetuated them and fucked up my life and had to deal with all the craziness. And what did I do? I just blamed the rest of the world for all those problems I created. So, I had a lot more years than some people have. But, I've now done, I just did my third step five last Tuesday. And every single one, like it was amazing. So one of the things that happened this time, Darrin, was I started writing this in the August, and I was part of a step working group that was happening every Tuesday afternoon. Shout out to Cheryl and Carol for starting that. But then Cheryl was in an accident, so she had to go for surgery. So there was like a month that things kind of stopped in that group where I had already started writing my inventory, and then I got this pneumonia. Well, I was like, man, when I went to do my step five last Tuesday, I was like, oh, I don't have this resentment anymore. In 3.5 months, I had changed enough that 3 out of the 13 things I had down had resolved themselves in me because I'm living the program, So it's like, talk about lasting change. That lasting change allows me to not carry resentments in the same way for as long. Like I I, I was, I was really happy to see that. I was like, man, I am resolving my life here with my sponsor, my higher power, and my perception, and that was a beautiful, beautiful thing. But it never would have happened without learning how to be honest. It never would have happened without getting that structure for my moral inventory and getting down to the root of my part and the fears involved with that. It never would have happened ever. I would have died blaming everybody for all my problems without this program, flat out.
What that reminds me of, Milan?
Mm,
This line. See if you can relate to this line. They will always materialize if you work for them, right?
mm.
So that you've been doing the work. So
Yep,
that's I think the people that are like, oh, this thing's not working for me, then you're not doing the work. If
I
you're
agree.
doing the work, it's going to work. It's a promise. It will always materialize. You will always continue to be amazed and
Mm,
grow and think and get better if you're doing the work. If you're sitting at home just tinkering with some music and feeling sorry for yourself because you got a cold and not doing all this work on the fifth step, you're not going to grow and get anywhere.
mm,
But because you do the work, right? You do the work, these things constantly materialize. I tell people all the time, I've been married 16 years with my wife. We got a great relationship. She's in recovery. Thank God we're both in recovery and have a really, really good relationship. And so I have people sometimes new couples, been married a year or two, and they come, it's like, man, I really want what you and your wife have. And my answer is, then you've got to do the work me and my wife have done. We've done a lot of work. When I
mm.
relapsed the first time, coming up on 4 years sober that we talked about before, I was 2 weeks away from getting married. She was actually out on her bachelor party weekend when I went and used. Yes. And so
Oh,
when I came back, I didn't know if she was still going to go through with the wedding or not. And she told me, she's like, I love you. I'm going to still go with the wedding, but this hurt me. We're going to have to go to counseling. As a man, I don't need no counseling, but I went to counseling with her for 1 year. And I learned a lot of things about me. It helped our marriage. See, we do the work. Even
counseling's
still to this,
great, actually.
yeah, yeah. We do the work, right? I
Mm,
don't let my mind say, I do the work. And we do the work in the relationship, and the relationship is good. So that's all aspects of my life. If I'm doing the work, then just like you said,
mm,
all these things are going to just start getting better and better and better for me. So I'm glad that you sort of threw that in about how over just 3 months' time, that some of those things just dissolve because you're doing the work. So if
mm.
you want what me and Milan have, then you have to do what me and Milan do, right? You have to be willing to go to any lengths to do the work that we do, right? There's no magic potion of, oh, how do I get recovery? How do I get there? You got to do the work. Everybody that's doing great in recovery is doing the work. Those that are not doing great are the ones that have started resting on their laurels and stopped doing the work, right?
Fortunately, I find it the most fascinating thing I've ever been privy to having the privilege to work at. Like literally the reward is peace, serenity, and joy. Like, I'm sorry, but man, I didn't know what those three things were until 26 months ago. You know, I just didn't know. And now that I've tasted the candy, I love it. Like there's nothing better than being able to have a day which would have been called horrible or bad to me before and still feeling joy through most of the day. Like like it just, you can't knock me off my rocker in the same way because my rocker isn't contingent on you pushing me. You know, it's just a whole different thing. And I'm so grateful for that.
It's a design for living that works in rough going, right? That's what he
Mm.
says. All right, I got another question for you.
Yeah.
Is rigorous honesty with myself just about alcohol?
Nope. Okay. Short answer, nope. But the reality is that the substance use and abuse, alcohol or drugs, was just my go-to solution for 37 years. It wasn't the problem. And, quite frankly, looking back through doing these inventories and that, I mean, it started from like fighting, having to fight at 3 years old and growing up in a tremendously rough town. Like I instantly couldn't even be honest about how I felt. If you cry, you got beat more, right? So I had to lie about whether I was even hurt or not, let alone express any sort of feeling. So, um, now, good, bad, or ugly, I try to communicate with what I'm feeling, and sometimes other people don't want to hear it, quite frankly, and that's okay. That's okay. I'm not doing it to be hurtful, but there's times for me where I need to communicate if something's uncomfortable for me, and if I'm willing, if I've got to remove myself from it, I think people deserve an explanation sometimes, you know. So for me, that honesty is even more necessary in my whole life. Like, you know, uh, the only one I was fucking fooling was myself with alcohol and drugs. Like I had a Facebook memory come up today, and it was from 5 years ago. And man, I looked so sick. I looked so sick. And I looked at that picture and I'm like, I can't even believe I posted that. Like I can't even believe that was to me was okay to show that is who I was, and so now, you know, I wear my recovery with pride, and I try my very best to live with rigorous honesty in a non-hurtful, loving way. And I think that's my answer for that one.
That's a great answer, Milan. That's a great answer. You know, we don't talk about, and that's why I love the show. We can get deep, we can get controversial. No, it doesn't matter because it's just me and you, right? So we can just say whatever, however, whatever we feel, and people are going to do what they do with it or not. But we don't talk about this enough, right? So when the newcomer comes in, because I know I heard this when I first came in, is some of the people, some of the old timers, just some of the people that have been around a while would say, this program is about not drinking and drinking alcohol. This program is about putting the plug in the jug. So I thought this program was about not drinking and drugging. And then when I relapsed and came back, I'm like, man, this program has nothing to do with drinking and drugging. It's just the beginning. Now, obviously, I have to stop drinking and drugging, or none of this is possible. But I really want especially if you're new out there, I want you to hear these statements. These are statements straight from the book. He says, we feel that the elimination of alcohol is but a beginning. More important, hold on, Milan, more important than not drinking alcohol? What can be more important than that? No, he says it. More important is practicing these principles in all my affairs. More important than not drinking and yeah, because if I don't practice these principles and recover, I'm going to go back to drinking and drugging anyways. So it's just the beginning is not drinking and drugging, right? Now, if you don't believe that, if you're still on the fence, let me take you to another passage. He says, sometimes we hear a man say that all he needs to do is stop drinking. Certainly he needs to stop drinking or he'll have no home if he does, right? But it's a far cry from recovery. We feel a man is unthinking to say that the elimination of alcohol is enough. He's like the guy that comes out of the storm cellar saying, look, Mom, ain't it grand the wind stopped blowing? Bro, no, there's a hurricane that's blowing everything down. I have no house, no car, and everything is destroyed. And I'm like, oh, look at me, but at least I'm sober. Who cares? Who cares? We feel a man is unthinking to say that that's enough. No, I got to rebuild the barn. I got to rebuild the house. I got a lot of work to do to recover. Yes, the alcohol's gone, but I'm still a mess. So I really want the new people to hear this. Your podcast doesn't say stop drinking and drugging podcast. It's this recovery. I'm trying to recover. I'm not just trying to stop drinking and drugging.
And
So
it
if you
says freedom rising.
yeah,
The freedom
my
that
freedom,
rises from that
it's
recovery.
rising. it's getting better. It's growing, just like you talked about. Absolutely. So if you're new, don't fall for the trap thinking that this thing is just about not drinking and drugging and that's it. You're selling yourself short. You're not finished. There's still a long period of reconstruction ahead, right? And so back to the question, is rigorous honesty about myself just about alcohol? Yes, in the first beginning, when I first get here, on step one, yes, it's just about alcohol. Okay. I have to admit to my innermost self, I've got an alcohol problem, right? I can't do nothing about it myself. I have to surrender that. But once I've done that, it's not even about alcohol anymore. They don't talk about alcohol in the rest of the steps. It's about me. Right. And so I really want the audience to hear this because this has sort of revolutionized my life, Milan. So in my first sobriety, the first 4 years before I relapsed, I had to file bankruptcy. Never was really good with money. File bankruptcy, never have had much in my life because I suck at everything and money, the managing money is one of them, right? And so I get in here and I get in recovery and I start realizing this thing is about more than just not drinking and drugging. And I start getting honest with myself in other areas. And I start getting honest with myself about my finances. Hey, our finances are in trouble. And so me and my wife were actually at a church thing, and there's this breakout class on finances, and I got honest with myself, and she did. Hey, we need this class. And so we went and took this class, and he talked about making a budget. And so me and my wife started making a budget. Long story short, we're not rich today, but I don't struggle with the finances. My finances are way better because I've done a lot of work because I got honest with myself.
Mm.
So for if you're out there, that this is the key to life. You ready for the key to life? Being honest with yourself. If you can't get honest with yourself about your finances and where you are financially, you'll never be financially secure. If you can't get honest about yourself about your health and what you're eating, what you're doing, then you're never going to be healthy. If you can't get honest about yourself, about the state your relationship is in, then your relationship is never going to be better. And it just continues on, Milan. If I can't get honest with myself about what's going on, I'm not going to recover in whatever area that is. Not just drugs and alcohol, but in every area of my life. So it's so infinitely important that I develop this self-searching to say, hey, you know what? Things are not as great in our relationship of me and my wife as they could be. I need to sit down and talk to her. We need to work this out. We need to find a solution. And that's what we do. We don't just leave things hanging. I'm honest with her. She's honest with me. And if we have problems, we work on fixing those problems. And then that's why my relationship with her is so great, is because we're honest with ourselves about when things are not great, and we do the work to fix it.
I love that. Woo! And yeah, man, there was something you said there that I wanted to comment on. I was like, I had a lot of financial wreckage from my past. We were this close to losing our house this spring. And I was at a meeting. It was the day after I had borrowed the last bit of money that I had borrowed off my mom, which was the last money that she could lend me. And one of the guys at the meeting, he just took 39 years. Shout out to Bob. He said he was 3 years into the program when his sponsor said, "You have to live the seventh tradition." He's like, he said, in order for you to be autonomous and not be influenced by everything else in the world with your opinions, with your actions, with everything, he says, you have to clear your debt and become fully self-supporting. And he's the only person I've heard talk about taking that seventh tradition and personalizing it. And for me, it just changed my life. I successfully cleared $175,000 of personal short-term debt this year by just not spending money on anything and working my ass off. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that because it's important to me. It's important to me to make that change. And what you're saying about the honesty about the finances is it's true. You can lie to yourself thinking you're making it and slide yourself into an incomprehensible demoralization about where your debt is. And then it makes going to work hopeless. Like nothing's more hopeless than working and not even making enough to survive. right? Like I really believe, you said some deep truths there, and I just really so much agree with it. 100%. Man, I love you, Darren. Like I really do.
Love you, brother.
It's so great. Okay, I've got a question for you now.
Yes, sir.
Admitting our feelings, even when we're judging ourselves for having them, is one way we practice honesty. How has honestly admitting your feelings despite self judgment contributed to emotional freedom in your recovery?
A great question. Well, that's the whole problem with me, man. I don't want to look at how I really feel. That's why I drink and drug, right? Because I don't want to look at what's really going on. I just can go numb it and then I don't have to look at what's going on or how I feel, right? So, and I love that you talked about feelings and emotions because we don't talk about that. But literally, that's where the relapse starts. It says spiritual malady, but that means there's something wrong with my spirit, my emotions, my feelings are out of whack. And then if I don't take care of that, it goes to my head and then I start getting crazy and then I go use. And so, how I'm feeling is so important. So now I get it. 19 years ago, when I got into treatment, I didn't get it when they said, "How do you feel today, Milan?" And I'm like, why are they asking this stupid question every day? How do I feel?
The
And the
feelings
reason is,
wheel.
yeah, the feelings will. Why? Because I never looked at how I really feel. And so I'll talk on a couple of things that I think will answer your question that pertain to my personal life. I remember early on, I had this was when I got here originally. I had like maybe a month or two sober. My wife was filing for divorce. She was taking my little girl from me. And I remember I was sitting around the house and, and, I had this overwhelming feeling of loneliness and sadness. And I'm like, I've never really been a lonely, sad person. I'm always too high. I'm like you. I'm like, I got to come down a little bit. But for some reason, I'm just like depressed, sad, lonely. And I don't know what's going on because I've never really gotten honest with it. And so I started hearing guys like you talk about getting honest with myself and my feelings and how my feelings. And so I started looking at that and I had this epiphany, Milan. I had this moment of clarity. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not really lonely and sad. I'm fearful. I'm fearful that my wife is going to take my child away and I'm never going to see my. And so the fear caused these feelings of sadness and loneliness and all that. So I wasn't even really sad or lonely. I was just fearful, right? And so that's why it's so important to look at what's really going on in my emotions because sometimes we hide the true emotions and mask them with anger or sadness or whatever when there's really other the root causes below that. So it's important for me to start looking inward and looking at my emotions. The second thing I learned, and I learned this 4 or 5 years ago, right? And this is why this program is so important. And like you said, Milan, that we continue to grow and learn and seek. And no matter how long we've been here, because there's always things to learn and grow and all that. And so 5 or 6 years ago, my daughter-in-law got hit by a drunk driver and almost killed her. I mean, literally, we were at the hospital and they're like, we don't know that she's going to make it through the night. Right. Long story short, she did recover, but for like 2 years, she had to go through all this physical therapy, and it was a big giant mess. And she had two little kids, my grandkids. And so my wife she would work throughout the whole week. She would get off at Friday. She would drive an hour down to their house and spend the whole weekend with them, with her to help take care of the kids so that she could recover. And she did that for 2 years, Milan, every weekend. Now, me as a husband, like, I don't know what's going on, right? I don't know. What am I feeling? How do I feel? And so here's what I learned. Are you ready for this? This is going to be a aha moment for somebody out there. I can have two opposite emotions that coexist at the same time. And here, let me explain that to you. Part of me is like, half of me is like, man, what an unbelievable woman that this my wife is. She works 5 days a week. She's tired, but she gets off and she goes and volunteers this whole weekend to take care of her grandkids and our daughter-in-law and for 2 years every weekend. But then the other half of me is like, this sucks. I don't have my wife. My wife's not here. I'm lonely. And I really had this internal conflict, Milan, of I don't know how what I'm supposed to feel. If I say I miss my wife and I'm lonely, then I'm a jerk because and if I say this, then I'm denying my true feelings. So I don't know what's going on. But I've learned from guys like you to get honest, talk to my sponsor. So I got honest with my sponsor and we processed all that. And he told me something that like has really helped me. It's okay. It's okay to have two opposites feelings that can coexist. It's okay to miss your wife, be lonely, be upset a little bit that you don't get to see your wife. That's a true feeling. It's okay. And it can also coexist with, I'm really proud of her. What an unbelievable woman she is. And what that did for me, Milan, is it helped me throughout that 2 years not build a resentment against her, not to, get all caught up in things that I would have got caught up in before. I was able to have my honest feelings about the way it made me feel, but also have the honest feelings about how I felt about her and how proud I was for her. And it was a big growth opportunity for me, right? So hopefully that answered your question in some way, shape, or form.
And also acknowledging that both of those feelings are existing, it can also eliminate you feeling shame and guilt over the negative part of that feeling. You know, yeah, I think that was a wonderful example. Man, just love you so much, brother. Okay, admitting my feelings even when I'm judging myself for having them is one way we practice honesty. How has honesty, admitting my feelings despite self-judgment, contributed to emotional freedom in my recovery? You know, part of it is you know, starting to actually accept things inside me and not necessarily judging myself as good or bad at a moment. Like if I'm having a feeling, if that feeling is elicited, there's some root to it, and um I truly am starting to believe that having is evidence of wanting. That if you have something over and over, there's some part of you, even if it's your subconscious, that wants that to occur. And that might be unresolved trauma. That might just be ego. That might be whatever. But like if it's happening over and over and over, and to just label like, 30% of my thoughts as bad, that's exhausting. Like it's just exhausting. And so there's a lot of things, there's a lot of things now that I'm realizing are leftovers, like leftovers that don't serve me anymore. There was a point where in one of your answers early on, you were talking about things that didn't serve you anymore. And like that's one of the things about honesty is that it's like when you actually can say, hey, whoa, it's okay, I'm feeling this, but that's because I used to feel attacked as a child. And now my reaction is to attack back. Like I don't need to play that role anymore because I'm not like in physical jeopardy like I was back then. Or I'm not, like having to survive fighting five people physically. Like life is changed, but traumatic reactions sometimes remain. And to actually just acknowledge, hey, you know what, this is scaring me right now. Like I might not like that. I might not like feeling scared, but to learn to be okay with that and to process it, it's the only way that I will get emotional freedom. Like I always say, without awareness, nothing changes. Like unless I know what it is that I'm going to like either work on myself or surrender, if I don't know, there's not a hope in hell that's changing. It would just be some like miraculous like and like what I think now that I believe at this point in my program is that if you're not entirely ready, like step 6 is a fundamental thing that your higher power will do whatever you can't. But if you haven't done all that you can, odds are you're not getting any help. Like I really feel that we have to do our part. And our part is building that awareness, understanding how we have to change, and being ready for that change to be actuated through that divine providence. Like otherwise, it's just not going to change. And I think that's my answer to that one.
No, that's great, Milan, and I'm glad that you sort of touched on this emotional thing because he talks about the emotional hangover, right? It's not the physical hangover. I'm not drinking or drugging, but I got an emotional hangover. And what he says, it's the excessive negative emotions, right, from the day before, right? And so I need to hone in on that word excessive. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to have negative emotions. It doesn't mean that I'm not still going to think about things or have emotions of things that don't serve me. But I don't lean into that. I don't wallow into that. I don't make it excessive. I recognize them. I talk to my sponsor about them. I move through them. I see, like you talked about, what work I need to do to get better, but I don't let them become excessive, right? And it's the
Mm,
same thing when he talks about and this is all good, especially if you're new. He talks about harboring resentments is the way that I block off God and relapse. It doesn't say I'm not going to ever have resentments. It's when I harbor them, when I make them excessive,
mm,
when I just focus on them and fix on them. If I get a negative emotion, if I get a negative feeling, if I get angry, because I'm still human, I don't harbor that. I don't let it become excessive. I immediately call my sponsor. Hey, I'm pissed at my boss today. He did
mm,
this, and we process all that, and I get all that out. And so I'm glad that you talked about the emotions because I got to really be careful that I don't fall back into that negative emotion, that pity pot that you always talk about, because I can go
mm.
back there if I'm not careful and start to ruminate on that. So I really appreciate you talking about that, of recognizing our emotions.
Well, and I think one thing to add on to what you just said there is like, you know, that negative emotion is a natural thing. Now, literally, the word resentment is a sentiment that's recurring, and sentiment. So it's, when you talk about harboring it, that is the thinking about it again and again and again. And what happens when that happens? You are no longer in the present moment. You have lost your conscious contact with your higher power, and you are now living in the past, or you're living in the future on how you're going to like get back at that resentment. So, like the very word resentment, it's like a sentiment that's occurring again. And so harboring those feelings is creating the sentiment again and again and again and again and again. Like how many times? Oh, I should have said this to him. I should have said that to her. I could have. Next time I'm gonna, like both of those things. I should have, and next time, that's taking you out of now, and that's the most dangerous place for us to be. Is disconnected.
No, and that's really good stuff. What they told me is to refill. It's the same thing you
Yeah,
said. To
yeah,
that's just that I continue to refill it. I can the sentiment is over and over and
yeah.
over, and so I think and we missed this. Let me throw this in here real quick, Milan, because this is the cliff note cheat notes for the day for the newcomer if you're out there. He says this. I need to learn to quiet the disturbance no matter who or what I thought caused it. So I'm at work, my boss says something, it tweaks my ego, I get angry. I need to stop. Okay, hold on. Let me pray, let me meditate, let me calm it. Later on when I get home, I can call my sponsor. We can process why I got angry and what part of my ego and what I can do to work on it. But I have to quiet the disturbance. Why? Why did he say that's the first? He says first, and first is italicized. The first thing is to quiet the disturbance. Why? Because of what you just said. If I don't quiet the disturbance, then for the next hour, I just reinvent it. I refeel it. And I re-sentiment it over
Mhm.
and over. Man, what a jerk. He didn't appreciate me. I don't know why I'm still working here. And then before long, I'm thrown off. And so if you're new, or if you've just been around a long time and you forgot about this, right? If I get thrown off, which I do, okay, I got to stop this, right? Let me get back to work. Let me pray. You take this guide, hold on to it. And then later on, I'll deal with it with my sponsor and talk about it. But I have to stop it. If I don't stop it, I'm going to continue to refill it. I'm going to harbor it. I'm going to re-sentiment it on and on and on until I'm thrown off. So it's a big, that's your little gold nugget for the day. If you
Mhm.
have a problem, just put the problem aside. Go back to a
Go help
friend,
someone else. Go
go help
help.
someone else. Go to a meeting, call your sponsor, pray, do something. And then later on, you can get with your sponsor and y'all can process of, what's going on, because that's what the book tells me to do. So
Mhm.
anyways, back to the questioning. So
The great questioning. I love you, man.
what are the benefits of rigorous honesty? Because look, I'm an addict, alcoholic still.
Mm.
What's in it for me? What am I going to get out of this? So, what are the benefits that you receive from rigorous honesty?
Okay. Serenity, peace, joy, freedom. Like the first thing is I don't have that lack of integrity, that like, oh shit, I got to remember to say this to Darrin because I lied to him about this and blah blah blah. Like that hamster wheel stopping creates an amount of serenity, you know, in my life and in my thoughts. I'm not fighting myself on what I want to say to somebody. Like there's that peace that's just like, I'm just going to say the truth here, you know, and I'm going to be loving and kind when I do it. And maybe I am going to show some discretion on what I say because I don't want to hurt Darrin, because I love Darrin. Um, you know, I experience a greater amount of joy just being able to be present, and that lack of dishonesty allows me to be present more frequently, you know. And the freedom comes from me not having this bag of rocks that I'm carrying called lies or resentments or future catastrophication or what I gotta remember, you know. um Freedom comes today with peace and a smile for me, from that.
A great answer, man. That's a great list of things to attain to: peace, freedom, happiness, love, joy. I mean,
If
it's
you
a
asked me
great list.
25 months ago, what are the top four things you would like in life? None of those things would have been on
That
the
wouldn't have
fucking
been
list.
it.
Not a single one, man. And now, my entire prioritization is just different.
Yeah, now those are the things you're most grateful for. That's great.
Yeah.
So, what are the benefits of rigorous honesty to me? So, there's four things, Milan, that I get out of being rigorous honest, right? And so the first thing, and you sort of mentioned it in one of your other answers, man, it's exhausting to keep up with the lies. Well, hold on,
Ooh.
where did I tell Milan I was? Why did I tell him I couldn't go to that thing? It's exhausting I have to tell a lie to cover the lie that I used to cover the lie. It's so exhausting to live in this dishonesty. Today, man, I don't have to try to keep up with the lies. I just am honest, right? I don't have to try, oh, did I tell my sponsor this? Or you know what? No, I've already told him everything. I've talked about everything. There's nothing, I don't have to keep up with the lies and live in that, because you remember what it's like. It's exhausting to try to remember the lies. Did I lie? What did I tell them? You know what I'm saying? I
Especially
just
after
don't
you're
have,
up for 4 or 5 days partying. It's like,
yeah,
what did I say
yeah,
yesterday?
yeah. And then the second thing, there's four things. The second thing is I have a clear conscience. Now,
Mhm.
we don't talk about the clear conscience, but it's really the reason that I'm restless, irritable, and discontented and need to go change the way I feel is because I don't have a clear conscience, right? You sort of talked about it earlier. I want everybody to look at me as this guy, right? This is the guy I want to be, and this is the guy I put out there that I want everybody to think I am, but this is the guy that I really am. I'm doing all these shady stuff. I'm lying, I'm cheating, and before I get here. And so I'm not, I don't have a clear conscience. I really know the truth about me, and I don't have a clear conscience. Today, I've already told you everything. I've told my sponsor everything. There's no secrets. I have a clear conscience. If I make a mistake, I go back and make amends to my wife. I don't sit there and, oh, I should have done this like I did with my first wife 19 years ago who left. How many times did I say, oh, I should probably go apologize for that, but then never did it. And so I had never had a clear conscience. And so this honesty, this rigorous honesty keeps my conscience clear. Number three, my sponsor can help me. I really want you to hear this. If you don't get anything else that I say out of this podcast, hear this. Your sponsor can't help you if you're not honest with him. If you or her, if you call your sponsor and you say, everything's fine, and your life is burning to the ground, how do you expect him to pick up a water hose and help you to fight the fire? He said, because he told them everything is fine. No, I'm not fine. I'm here. I'm this, I've got this going on. I'm really struggling with this. This is what I do. Still, Milan, 16 years sober. If I have a problem, I'm telling my sponsor, I'm struggling with this. I'm having a problem. I don't know what to do here. And he can help me because number one, he already knows all my character defects and my stuff from the step 4. So he's already armed with a whole bunch of facts about me. And now because I've gotten honest with him, so if you don't do anything else in your recovery, get honest with somebody about what's going on. People can't help you if they don't know. That's right. It's just like you. If you're struggling but every time you go to a meeting, you just tell everybody, nobody's going to be able to help you. But if you say, hey, I'm really been struggling with this, you're going to be amazed at all the people that come up and offer you advice or offer you a helping hand or, hey, I got a truck, I can help you move or whatever it is. People have to know what I need. If I don't ever get honest about what I need and what's going on, people can't help me. And then the last thing, Milan, is it clears my connection with my higher power, right? The dishonesty blocks me from God, right? It's a barrier, right? And once I get honest with somebody, it opens that channel back up to where God can help me. It's the reason. And don't get me wrong, I love church, Milan. I've raised up in the church. I still read the Bible. I still go to church. So don't misunderstand me here. But that's the difference between church and recovery. Church has no step 6, right? We just go to church and God's going to make everything great. But I'm being dishonest and I'm not doing my part and I'm not done. No, then God's not going to make everything great. I
Yeah.
have to have a step 6 to where I'm like, okay, hold on. You know what? I'm not okay. I'm not okay. And then I unblock that channel to where God can help me in 7 because I get honest with somebody. I look at the character defect. I look at my dishonesty, whatever's going on, and I share that with somebody, preferably my sponsor or somebody. And then it opens up that channel where God can now, because I'm humble now, because I've humbled myself and got honest, then God can come in and help me. And that's why church never, because I went to church and God never did nothing for me, Milan.
Mm,
But I would say, God, please help me as I was on my way to the liquor store, to the drug man. Right?
mm,
How's God going to help me if I'm not doing my part? If I'm not getting honest, if I'm not talking to somebody about what's going on and how I'm struggling. And so that's the biggest key for me. If I'm getting honest, then I'm keeping this channel opened up where God can help me.
love it. I love it. Do you have time for another question?
I do.
Okay. So, when the message we carry is an honest reflection of our experience rather than what we imagine other people want to hear, the truth can set all of us free. In sharing with others over the years, how has conveying an honest reflection of your experience set you free?
Wow, that's a great question. So it's an easy answer for me too, Elon, because I've talked about this before and I've done a lot of thinking about this. So there's another big religious word that they use out there all the time that we don't talk about in the program, but it's called redemption. How do I redeem myself? Right? How do I redeem myself for all the horrible things that I did in the past? Right? I can't go backwards. I can't go back to my first wife and be a better husband and take back all those horrible things that I said about her. How do I redeem myself? So the redemption comes when I'm honest with another man. Hey, this is how I treated my wife. It ended up in divorce, and this is what happened to me. When I share my past, and I can help that guy be better to his husband, to his wife, then I get a level of redemption, right? And so that's why now you understand why Bill says we don't regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. Because when I'm honest about my past, when I'm honest about what I'm going through, I can help somebody else. And through the helping of somebody else is the only way I can redeem myself. Right. Stay with me, Milan. I don't know how your audience feels about the Bible and all that. I try not to bring too much of that into recovery, but there's just something that just came to my heart. So, you don't have to believe in the Bible to be in recovery. This is just my personal belief, but I think the message transcends the religion. But so there's this guy Peter, and he denies Christ 3 times, and I don't know this guy. And then when Jesus comes back to him, he says, "Do you love me? Feed my sheep." He doesn't even talk about the bad things that this guy did to him. He's like, if you want redemption, go help somebody else. Now, no, again, whether you believe in the Bible or religion is
Mm.
irrelevant. It's the basis for our program. Go help somebody else, right? When I go help somebody else, I redeem myself from my past. Now, if I'm not getting honest about, oh, look, I went through this. Hey, I did these horrible things, then I'm not going to be able to help that guy get over those horrible things, and I'm not going to get redemption. So, to answer to your question, it is literally the pathway to redemption for me. Is I go tell this guy, hey, this, and doesn't even have to do with drugs and alcohol, even all the time. Milan, I go tell this guy, hey, you know what? I had to file bankruptcy. I don't want people to know that I had to file bankruptcy. Oh, in my first three. Why? His ego was the only reason I wouldn't want somebody to know. So when
Mm.
I go and I do that, and I tell somebody, "Hey, I sucked at money. I had to file bankruptcy, and I've done, and I can get honest with my past, and I can help this guy from maybe not filing bankruptcy. I can redeem myself for the mistakes I made in the past. It's the only way, because I'm never going to go back in the past and change it. Redemption comes from being honest with my past, not regretting my past and shut the door on it, and using that to help the new guy. And that brings me some level of redemption. So I hope that answered your question in some way.
I think it was a beautiful response, actually. So, when the message we carry is an honest reflection of our experience rather than what we imagine other people want to hear, the truth can set all of us free. In sharing with others over the years, how has conveying an honest reflection of my experience set me free? Well, one of it was about 13 months ago, and I was like, you know what, I'm not doing enough prayer and meditation. So I started to go to a Dharma recovery just because they do a group meditation, and I'm just trying to learn how to meditate, to be honest. Like, I mean, it was like doing the steps. Didn't know how to do them. Somebody's got to show me, and anyway, so one of the things that I encountered right when I went was there's a on YouTube, anybody can do it. It's called the Four Pebbles meditation. And it's got, I think it's got like a Tibetan monk or somebody who's guiding us through this thing. But one of the things, one of the four parts to this meditation is it talks about water. And it's like, if the water is stirred, you can not only not see the world clearly, but you can never reflect the world clearly. Like if you don't see the world clearly, your reaction to the world isn't clear. And so like a question like this with the conveying an honest reflection of my experience, you know, it it takes a lot of work to just to see things clearly. Like to see what's really happening versus what I wanted to happen and how it's not, without putting my expectational skew on it, without putting my preference skew entirely on it, like to surrender enough. And one of the things that I've started doing really at meetings is, you know, when I'm not asked to be the first person to share, I'm just kind of start thinking about what the topic is, and I just pray for some guidance. I pray for some guidance to share love, truth, and surrender. And for me, um, it's taken me out of myself of like trying to like I'm telling you, I think anybody who has not tried to formulate shares when they hear something get talked about at a meeting is a fucking liar. And so trying to pull back from that instinct, trying to just remain present about what I'm hearing and and how it's opening my heart, or how, you know, like my emotional reaction to it, and my spiritual reaction to it too. Because, you know, like what we have is that daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. And so like sharing and service is part of that spiritual condition. And so that happening honestly, and not like I'm trying to puppeteer the world, is so important. And the only way that I can honestly share is if I'm honestly seeing things clearly. Because otherwise, you're just seeing through my lens. And that lens has been distorted for most of my life. You know, like I look back at situations that occurred inside my existence, and I think how profoundly disillusioned I was. And I'm not looking at that with a like a lamenting feeling. I'm looking at that with a gratitude for not being there now. Yeah.
Yeah, I sort of chuckle when you said that about sharing in the meetings. I hate to go first because if I go first in a meeting, they call me, then I have to think of what I'm going to say, and it usually sucks. I like to go last. I like to share at the end of the meeting because I'm like you. I just sort of stay present and listen to everybody's shares.
Mhm.
And by being present in their share, God speaks to me things to say, and my shares are much better at the when I share at the end than the
Yep.
beginning. And man,
100%.
I love you, Milan. I love
Mm.
this podcast.
Yep.
Thank you for asking me to do it with you once a month. It's really a highlight of my month to do it. I do have just one closing thing to
Yeah.
say to everybody out there. Do not be afraid to be honest. Let somebody know, right, what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
If you're holding things back that you've been needing to tell your sponsor, go share that with your sponsor. If
Mm-hmm.
you've been needing to be honest with people in your life, be honest. The rewards of the honesty are so great. Don't be fearful. Fear is the only reason that I would never be honest with somebody. It's because I'm fearful. We don't live in fear. We live in faith that God is going to make things right. So I encourage you, I implore you to, if there's these things you've been holding on to, release them. Go tell somebody. Be honest today.
Take away their power with the truth.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Man, I'm grateful that you came back. I can't wait for the next time we do another one. Everybody out there, tune in next episode for more recovery fun. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.
We love you. Please help us help others. If you like what you've seen here today, please subscribe and share this podcast and help us get to 100 followers. We're looking for interaction with our audience. So please email recoveryfreedomrising@gmail.com or contact Milan South Okanagan Starcic on Facebook with questions, topic suggestions, or just comments. We'd love to hear from you.